He wants to make $300,000 a year only helping 45 people a year get a roof, right? And those 45 people, the minute he stops, he's gone. He's never going to answer their phone call again.
Once you create these videos for the top 7 questions in the sales process and put them onto the website, including pricing and why are you more expensive, then people start to be much more ready to buy and you have less trash customers.
And then you get unit economics of the business coming down to allow to pay more for the labor. So I think that there's a cycle that has come to industries like this where the labor will get a bigger proportion of the share because the business operates at a lower cost.
Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Hook Better Lease podcast. And today I have Adam Sand of Roofing Business Partner, or RBP Consulting.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to be here in the office, kind of helping and contributing and see what I can do, but then also what I can learn from the experience.
Absolutely. And today we're talking about, are you writing for robots or humans on your website? And we're also talking about the tension of growing a company. How quickly should you grow that company and the things that hold you back? I'm sure I'll come up with a better title and slap it on there once this thing is done, but let's get into it.
I posed a question in the group the other day that most content that is written on the internet it used to be humans writing content to pretend to be good for humans that's actually good for SEO crawling robots. And then especially in roofing, let's just keep it there. So then if I'm a roofer and I read, now it's robots writing content for robots because everybody's using things like ChatGPT and Jasper and stuff like this. But if I Google best marketing for roofers, your page is one of those ones that shows up, right? Roofer SEO, I think, is the one that you actually show up first for. You frequently kind of show that
Roofing
screenshot.
SEO,
So now, if I'm a roofer and I Google roofer SEO, and then you show up first, at best, I'm skimming it to go, they have some content here, but then I'm just going to go to the contact us page and I'm going to reach out to you and book a call. So the quality of human readability or pedagogical learning, teaching that came from that blog post is not as effective as the fact that you wrote.
We're able to show up.
You were basically able to get an upvote from the robots.
Yeah, I think basically I could agree and then just kind of dissect some of the nuances of that. So one, if somebody does read that, especially the top part, because for instance, they may at least read the headline and maybe a couple key bullet points, let's say differentiating features, and then they may even read what is the form kind of saying, if they're gonna convert, right? So you need all that to be at least good. I happen to believe that I'm writing for humans that then inform robots. So I really am kind of trying to hit the robots, but I believe that the human behavior informs what the robots rank. So it's not cleanly this way, and that's why it's confusing. And technically, I don't really know every last detail of Google's algorithm.
Well, I don't think even Google at this point knows, but
yeah, it's true. There's John Mueller, who's the main guy of Google, and I've heard him speak and been involved with it before at a conference, and I'm I feel like I know some things about the algorithm that you don't, because I'm working, I'm literally
This is like Jamie Dimon and the 2008 financial crisis where they don't even know how to read the analyst sheets anymore, right? They don't even know how these derivatives work. So I think that exists to some degree.
But there's basically this, if they do read it all the way, so that page, for instance, roofing SEO, I think roofer SEO, there's My Roofer SEO, which is a company name. So they've cheated the system on roofer SEO, which is, hey, that's a strategy. But roofing SEO were the top one usually. And if you read that entire thing, it's basically as much information as a lot of these people charging $250, $700 for a course. Ultimately, I've actually given people exactly how to do the entire, from scratch process. I believe that I am fulfilling the intent. That's my belief around SEO. You should fulfill the intent of the searcher. And maybe that's you could really go either way with this. So I'm not saying that that's that might be over delivering on this process, but that is our ideological intention, is to fulfill the intent. That means we don't generally go after super crazy deep technical roofing topics when we're writing for a roofer. we're generally going for like commercial intent topics and covering them from a customer's perspective thoroughly. So we're really trying to create this, like, it actually covers the entirety of the intent if somebody read it all the way through, because I believe humans inform, the babies in the background here, that humans inform the robots, basically.
So Pareto's principle, right? The 80%, how do you get 80% of the result,
Yes.
20% of the work? So isn't it really, therefore, we're just taking the best shingles that they ask you answer, right?
Yeah.
So the best competitors in my area, who are right for, who are not for right for. Like, let's say that's your SEO approach.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it is,
no,
but I'm saying it is.
yeah.
Let me finish my point.
Yeah.
We're doing that same blog post, right? Or it could be best shingles or best roofers in my area, whatever it is. We're doing the same blog post that we did in Wisconsin, or in like a city in Wisconsin, and a city like Omaha, Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, San Antonio, Texas. We're doing the same blog post over and over and over again, just enough to not trip out the plagiarism checker, right? The duplicate content thing. But really, like, how many questions fulfill the intent of, like, how many questions are there really for us to answer as roofers?
Yeah.
Right? If that say, I want to fulfill the intent of, I'm looking for a roofer in my area. And how many real different ways is there to satisfy that intent ideologically? You want to provide value to the human, but you're not measured on Tom Roofer's ability to fulfill the intent of a homeowner looking to how to install a shingle.
Sure.
But if you write a blog how to install a shingle, you might get them leads, which is what you're ultimately compensated to do.
And I don't even look at that as a lead gen thing if they did that. Like, let's say you did a blog post. Let's say it's you doing your SEO, and you did a blog post about the proper way to install a shingle. One, it's kind of a social proof thing. If they saw that blog on social, they're like, oh, this guy cares. But it's also like, if you have the blog, if you have, let's say, 5 out of 50 blog posts that take off and are actually ranking high, like we have customers ranking like in the top 3 for just roofing materials, then the intention around that, it's not the main thing that we're trying to do, but the intention around that, if that does happen, is to essentially buoy the other content on their website by Google looking at this website as a resource. And that's the way I look at it, is that these other things, when they do take off, because we do blog for people, buoy their website as a topical authority. And so we're kind of creating some authority there. It is kind of a miscellaneous. It's that 80, sometimes it's not the main thing. The main
but
thing
that goes back to, like, again, we're using the robots upvote to buoy the rest of the content of the website. Because really what we want is for a customer who Googles something about roofing in my area to go to that contact form and submit a lead.
And that's why, like, if you don't, you're not trying to go hard as we go sometimes for our clients. It's like, you do want those location landing pages. You want those. That's like, I say play small ball to win big. That's one of the small ball things, like location, suburbs, even the small ones. Like, they're easy to rank for, right? So small suburb location landing pages, and then like any topics that are like in the area. Like we do bars sometimes. We'll do like, like best things to do, stuff like that can actually really like help for the local authority. It's kind of creating that like topical authority around the city name.
So then again, you're writing about a roofing company writing about the best places to eat in Wichita.
Yeah,
right.
It might be a little nice to have, but it's like, it's also like, it's ultimately like, if we can rank that and trying to get some local authority, it's kind of like a billboard move. You know what I mean? That one's like a little bit like, oh, now this roofing company is writing about best places to eat, but it's not a hard one to rank for. That's why you would potentially go after stuff like that, because it's easier to rank for.
But then again, it's like, that's where my thing comes in. It's like, you're not nowhere in like let's take that as the answer.
I love
nobody.
the answer, by the way.
Nobody asked a roofer what the best place to have breakfast is in Wichita, but I don't know, is Wichita a place?
But it'd be really easy to rank for.
But then you're writing for the robots to buoy the content to get is Kansas? Okay, so that's what I mean. So then
it definitely is for robots. Like, to be clear, we're understanding how the robot eats. And then from my point of view, we believe that humans are part of what human behavior is part of what informs that robot's. hard to, what's
Yeah, you're talking about the
perception?
time on site, you're talking
Perception, yes,
about
time on
conversion
site
rate,
and
like
stuff, conversion
the other
rate.
thing that happens on the website,
User behavior.
right? This is user behavior on the website combined with writing for robots to get the upvote. So you write for the robots, you get the upvote, you show up higher in the search results, and then if Google
the user behavior isn't there,
yes,
if it sees that the intent is not fulfilled, then you go down again.
right. So what it's basically doing is it's saying, I give you a vote and an opportunity to show up for a person. And if you show up for a person and the user behavior confirms our hypothesis, which is that this is valuable content from a site that will fulfill the intent, then we'll solidify it and give you a domain authority point.
Yes, and there is a little bit of complexity around this because there's differences of opinion in the SEO community.
Of course, yeah, you have to be careful of all the other SEO guys.
There is certainly and ultimately that one complexity there that is kind of fun to talk about is a lot of those people actually say that user behavior has nothing to do with it. So that is an important caveat because
see, I feel like I feel like user behavior, if not, it should, because way back in the day when I cared about this, I was always concerned with trying to get people to get a second page visit and trying to get people to stay on the site and watching like a video. Like I took sacrifices on time on page speed for user experience for an informative infographic video because it kept time on site.
That's a really good point to talk about. I think just to kind of wrap up this conversation is I always think about those two things together. That's been since the inception of this business. It's been that back and forth between we want the user experience to be very high, and we want Google to like it. And we need both.
I'm gonna get Tim to go look at my website and see what he would do with mine. Totally out of the market.
So
I'm not his ideal customer avatar.
But that being said, sometimes it's should we include this video? Like a tactical decision is, should we include this video on the homepage, even though it increases our time on site a half a second, let's just say. And really the question is it design? Is it fancy? Or is it actually informing the buyer behavior? Is it going to essentially sell somebody? And that should be the way you make that decision is it's a half a second, but if this person watches this video, this is potentially gonna help them make a better buying decision. And they actually, so really, you kind of have to factor those things together. And I think ultimately,
what if the video qualified your customer a little bit better, but reduced the total lead volume? So you got a more qualified customer.
That's a deeper question. And I think ultimately that is what we do, on our website, with they ask you answer thing is we know that sometimes people watch a video, a customer I want that I just talked to recently. I'm hoping to work with you, bro. Said we decided not to work with you because of a video on your site. And at this time, based on the fact that you don't solve the need that we have at this exact moment. And ultimately, even though it hurts a little bit, I have to say that is basically what the video's point is. The point is if it's not the right time, and it hurts, basically you can only do this once you start to have such lead volume.
It feels like it bit you in the ass because then it didn't have the perfect intended circumstance. But the other 5 times, it works perfectly because it's rooting out the crap.
It's rooting out the crap, 100%, and people come in more ready to buy. You're trying to get, he calls it, the 80% video or something? We're trying to get them to 80%, not just come in and, people have a lot less questions. I don't know, it's hard to do data on this stuff, but it feels very true. Once you create these videos for the top 7 questions in the sales process and put them onto the website, including pricing and why are you more expensive, then people start to be much more ready to buy and you have less trash customers.
That was what I dealt with when I was trying to grow a roofing company. Was I said I wanted my leads to come in. I wanted Bob and Betty, who are between 35 and 55 years old, who were a married couple with teenagers living in the home. They lived in a suburban house with 2 stories, a 612 pitch. They were either civil service workers, like government, military, police, cops, professionals, like business owners, or professionals or business owners, right? Professionals being teacher, dentist, doctor, or business owners, because I felt everything about what I did was to try and attract that exact customer, because what I didn't want to have was Joe Mechanic phone me and then they look at everything on the roof through the lens of, I'm a mechanic, they pay me $45 an hour, the shop charges me out at $145. If I could just find, these customers are paying an extra $115 or whatever to get me, when if they just came to me at my shop at home, I could charge them $60 and make $15 more an hour. I should just try and find the guy that this sales guy is hiring to do this roof work, and I'm not going to pay the sales guy. Ultimately, the customer knows that they're paying that. But then your professional or your lawyer, or your business owner, they understand risk, right? They understand that like there's a management infrastructure in place. They understand that there's a chain of command that makes an organization strong. That's what police, military, business owners, and professionals understand. And that the components are necessary. I wanted the 612 roof because I wanted it to be steep enough that people were concerned about property damage. People were concerned about safety. A 412 single-story bungalow trailer double wide, nobody gives a shit because they think of it as easy.
RoofCon's amazing. Getting to see all the speakers like Nick and Eric and especially Tim Tebow. Very exciting and eye-opening.
Amazing speakers and great knowledge. Keep it up.
First RoofCon, been following Hunter and the Revolt clan for quite some time, and it's definitely been a lot more than what we expected.
RoofCon 2023 returns to Orlando, Florida, November 9th through the 11th. Get your tickets at roofcon.com.
I wanted the teenage kids living in the home because I wanted it so that the homeowner looked at it through the lens of like, I'm going to be here for a while because I don't want to uproot my kids. So this is a roof that I'm going to be the main beneficiary of.
Can I ask you, I know that I'm cutting you off, but I want to kind of like get to the core of the topic around content. Is did it change the way you were writing on the website?
It changed everything about how we did it because we made the phone number deliberately hard to find.
Yeah.
We made the contact us button very small.
Yeah.
Right? We went from having a big form right center page that said name, email, guaranteed response time, went from 2 hours to 5 minutes over the course of time as the standards got better. But I can't believe there used to be a time when guaranteed 2 hour response time was considered good.
Yeah.
There was a time when it was. But that was the idea, is that we switched.
I feel like it's still kind of good, dude, to be honest with you. Like,
that's terrible.
Yeah, the average
so
roofer.
we switched. That's why that 80% of them don't deserve to exist. But
oh God, he has to say it.
So then, or 20% of roofers deserve to be highly successful. How about
There
that?
you
Is
go.
that
I
better
like
branding?
that.
That's better.
That's
It's more
better.
positive.
Yeah.
But so my intention with everything we did was that we wanted to make it hard for people to find the contact us button, that they were forced to explore the website a bit because they would get to know who we are, and everything about our marketing spoke to that person. The people in the videos looked like those people, the houses that will look like those types of houses, because we even got to the point of figuring out that landscaped homes without fences between the property lines close at a higher rate and a higher dollar per square amount than houses with one or the other or both. So if they had a fence or they had no landscaping,
Where were you getting all this data from? Company Cam?
We would use Company Cam to create tags. Then those tags, we use Zapier to send those tags into tags in the CRM. And then we reported on revenue per square divided by this tag, revenue per square divided by this tag. And we found that a fence or landscaping didn't make a difference, but no fence and nice landscaping made a big difference in per square rate and closing rates, because then you have a community effect with the neighbor.
Yeah.
And you feel like you have a more of a responsibility. Like they're the ones where it's like, hey Charles, you gonna get that weed? I don't want that coming over here on our side. You know what I mean? Like when you don't have that, you have a community effect with your neighbor. So you don't want the shingle wrappers blowing into your neighbors, or you feel more connected to your neighbor because you don't have that fence. And the nice landscaping implies that they take pride in their property. And so those two things made a difference. So when considering that we always, and still to this very day, the company that I was helping grow had difficulty getting all the work done, we wanted the best work possible at the close, the highest rates and everything like that, because we couldn't get all the work done. But I think eventually you get to a size of a company, like now the companies that we help, I mean, they're like, do they have a land title and $12,000? We want them. You know what I mean? Like they don't care.
Yeah,
So
I think
when does that line happen?
Yeah, just to note, like, I believe more prominent call to actions, because I want to kind of say to my audience, like, we really believe in that prominent call to action thing, but ultimately you need better sales processes in place to filter shitty leads. Like, I just want to see that lead at least, and to be able to make a decision myself.
Of course, because you're measured by your clients.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
paid you money, Tim, and how many leads did I get?
Yeah.
In my case, it was, I'm doing the work. I'm running the sales. I'm passing this work off to production,
Yeah.
and I'm getting paid on the work.
Yeah.
So therefore, I only wanted to drive to the houses that were Bob and Betty, married, 2 teenage kids living in the home, 612 roof or steeper, a larger suburban style home where they were a professional doctor, dentist, lawyer, business owner, civil service worker, because I was the one to do it. But so in that case, I wasn't concerned with like doing 5 leads because I wasn't concerned with trying to fill my salespeople. I was trying to make it was much more personalized. So I'm not saying that call to action should be hidden.
No,
It was my circumstance for my situation.
You know, we've kind of covered the topic a little bit of like, is content for robots or humans? We're also starting to get into the topic. Well, we talked about they ask you answer principles and how to use them to filter. And I think we're getting into this topic of the tension between production and sales and when to let it out. Because we were just talking about this earlier. Like, I like to be at that 80% of people are not a good fit for us, but that top 20%.
Weird, and 80% of roofing companies don't deserve to exist.
Exactly, I want those 20%. Yeah.
Just
Well,
weird.
it's also like, you think about it, like, there's 110,000 roofing companies in the United States, but like up to 70 or 80% of them are under 1 million. And that's not to say that those people aren't going to get up there, but it is sometimes it's just easier to qualify that way because it's ultimately like, you and I, let's say it's what is your bottom end of your customers usually on revenue side?
5 million, let's say.
Let's say 5 million. But you still, from that 5 million up, sometimes they're doing a little bit of a Shark Tank, like with them. You know what I mean? You're kind of saying like, is this person
from
gonna
5 to 10? We ask a lot more questions.
You're kind of saying like,
At 10,
do
we
I
ask
believe these
less.
guys are going to be successful? Because you and I both know sometimes like when they're not.
You can
For
get
other
lucky.
reasons.
You can get lucky and do 5 million in sales.
You could also like end up with this negative experience as a service provider where they're actually blaming something that went wrong on you.
Yeah.
So like you have to a little bit like, are you taking full responsibility for, like, let's say they're up to 5 to 10 million. You're saying, are you taking full responsibility for everything that happens here? I'm going to help you, and I think I can help you get to 10. But like, you're going to take full responsibility. I'm going to help. And like, are you kind of headed upwards anyways? Like ultimately, I'm kind of looking for people that are kind of like moving, or they're moving towards their ideal. Maybe their ideal 7, and they have just a lot of time freedom. You know what I mean? But like, are you moving towards it anyways? Because I don't want you, if you're at 7 and you're going to 5, and you kind of like blaming other people. You know what I mean?
We have a blog post that's literally called "Bad Fit Clients," and it says in there, if you're blaming other people for your problems in your business, like, you're probably a bad fit client because you're going to blame us. Like,
that's some of the times, like with agencies, like I definitely understand. You can have 1, 2, 3 bad agencies, but like if you've had 5 in the last 2 years
And they all suck?
and you're mad at all of them,
it's another point on the list. It's
like,
if everybody else before us sucked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's where I struggle with, because no offense, you have 5 agencies so let me understand this. You have 5 agencies, they all sucked, and you're like, you haven't changed anything wildly about the way you're hiring, like in hiring agencies. Like ultimately, if I have 5 bad employees in the same role, I would look at myself and I'd do some deep self-reflection and say, Tim, you really are not doing this right. Like that's the way I'd look at it. Like I'd have 1 or 2, if I had 2 bad employees in the same role in a row, I'd say there's something that probably needs to change in this environment.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think like ultimately that's the way I'd look at it with hiring outside resources. But like, so sorry, that was a diversion. We were talking about that you want to have criteria, right, for your ideal customer, but how stringent do you want that criteria to be? So if we're going from content writing to they ask you answer to we're trying to get some filtering and marketing, you don't want it to be too crazy stringent, right? Like if you probably should grow.
I think that you like the lazy answer is whatever the market will bear, but there is some truth in it, which is that you always have this. I think that a lot of service providers, whether it be roofers, marketers, whatever, and I've recently had to learn this lesson in my own business in the last year or so, and I really solidified it when I interviewed Brennan from Capilli about his 6-month backlog. because I got really uncomfortable at the point of having like a 6-week backlog. And so I think that really it's about measuring your run rate and your sales rate, right? So like rolling 30-day sales and then your run rate as far as income being generated. So if you're generating, $1 million in sales a month, but you're burning off 800,000, well, then you're accumulating $200,000 a month in backlog, right? And where does that rolling 30-day sales go down? Is it once you get to a 2-month backlog, a 3-month backlog, a 6-month backlog, right? And then you really start to measure those numbers, and that is going to ultimately indicate what the answer is.
So for us, like if we're past 2 months, it will definitely affect our sales, probably.
Right, and so then that's the backlog that you want.
But for a roofer, it's probably more like 6 months.
Well, I mean, I think that a roofer with a mixture of different types of commercial work, like state, federal, private, competitive low bid, and maintenance, combined with retail, you can manage a 6-month backlog because commercial clients are going to wait longer because they, that's just part of their performance period. They just define that their performance period is between April and August of 2023, and that's when this has to be done by, and then it's up to the contractor to figure out when to get it done.
Yeah.
Whereas like new construction, it's like get in there now. We need to get our we need to get our next draw of money for, like, basically when they get waterproof, they get another draw of money, and then like they get the lockup, and then they have these different stages, and then like homeowners want it done now, and so you have to be able to fill in, right? You have to fill in like small work and big work, but I think that that's where knowing the numbers is really important. So the lazy answer is whatever the market will bear. The detailed look at it is looking at rolling 30-day sales, close rate, right, and burn rate, right?
What about the people that just don't want to grow? You have no judgment for those people? Like, let's say you're at $1.2 million roofing company and you're just like, I want to be this size and I don't want to hire. I
think that I mean, I don't have a judgment for them. I just also don't have anything to do for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I feel the same way. Same.
It's like it's like that's cool. And like I know a guy who's like between 1.2 and 2 million. He inquired with us on some stuff. The guy's a loose cannon. You know what I mean? He's kind of like, hey man, totally ready to go. Want to do it? Then you message him the next day, nothing. You message him 2 days later. He's like, bro, why are you following up with me? I'm going on vacation. You're like, why'd I even bother?
Ultimately, I tried. I'll be honest, I don't know if this is the right thing, but I try to like motivate some people sometimes, because I'm like, if you really think you're the best, like if you think you're really good, you should grow.
It's like if you
should grow.
A business is either growing or dying. If you're not growing, you're dying because someone else is waking up every day trying to kick your ass. The problem is that in the roofing industry, you can get away with it because it's like real estate before 2008. It went up all the time, constantly for 100 years. So therefore, it was always going to go up, and it was impossible for people to conceive the idea that real estate would go down 30-50%. It just didn't exist in people's paradigms. And I think that as a roofer, you can sit there and do 1.2 million for 30 years, but I don't think you're gonna be able to do it for another 30 years. And maybe in a little tiny rural town in the middle of nowhere where you're the crumb that nobody wants to bother bending over to pick up and eat. You know what I mean? Like if you're walking from breakfast to lunch, you know what I mean? And you're going to eat well at breakfast and you're going to eat well at lunch. Are you really going to bend over to pick up a crumb off the ground? It takes more effort and calories to pick up the crumb off the ground. So if you're in some like tiny little town, I always say Wichita because it sounds like a tiny little small town that nobody's heard of. But if you're in a rural area, 35 minutes outside of Wichita, yeah, you could probably do $1 million a year taking care of your local market. You're like the guy. You're roofer Dan. You know what I mean? Yeah, then you can do it.
I tend to like really root for these guys too. Like I just ultimately,
of course, you can't help.
I'm rooting for you to grow, and
you have champion of the underdog on your.
I just can't root for you to grow if you don't want to. You know what I mean? Like, and I kind of don't want to root for you anymore. To be honest with you, I don't know why my brain is like that. But if you don't want to grow, I'm kind of like, why? Do you suck? Like if you suck, then I don't think you should exist.
It's because I believe that their thing is. Right, we have to understand, or I guess we have to be understanding as business owners that there are self-employed people and there are business owners, and having a tax ID doesn't make you a business owner.
And ultimately, I am jealous of them sometimes. If I'm really because if you're really a self-employed person, like that's you're self-employed, you do 1.2. Your margins are generally pretty good, probably.
Yeah, your gross margins are pretty clse to your net profits.
And then it's like, why does it matter really? Because
you're probably making $300,000 a year.
Yeah, why do I care? That's like what I make, and my wife and I make. So who cares?
Right, and it's because it's about purpose. It's how they talk about mission, vision, values, purpose. Impact over income, blah, all this stuff. Like
maybe
John
I just bought into all this stuff too.
Right,
much.
you've bought into that. No, I wouldn't say too much. I would just say that if you had a natural happiness set point, just based on your chemical, right?
Yeah.
Like basically you're biologically set at a certain happiness set point. Some people are just, if they can control their happiness about 40%, and then the rest is biological set point, right? So you can always get over 50% happy, but it's like you have a certain biological set point. Then yes, environment does play a role, right? And how happy you are. And then from there, everything between stimulus and decision is choice. And if the thing that motivates your choice is when you look out of the room and you see that those people are, have found a place where they get to feel community, a sense of empowerment, a sense of purpose, a sense of self-dignity, sense of self-actualization. And then if you get a high off of like the customers.
One, I do with the customers too. Like if their business is growing, like, so I feel like we're doing an actual good service that's above the market average, so ultimately it's both of those are like purpose.
Yeah. So then you have a
activation.
fiduciary and a moral obligation to your clients to bully that guy for his lunch money because he doesn't want to grow, and therefore that business is better off in your client's hands.
And roofers, like if you feel like your processes lead to better work for homeowners, and you've seen homeowners get taken advantage of by.
Yeah, but the $1.2 million guy is going to argue that he's better because he's up on the roof, and
some of them are not. You know what I mean?
Of course, absolutely. I mean, but the thing is their minds will stop accepting the information in this video the minute you say that.
Yeah.
And so
they probably won't watch this.
It's true, they probably won't, especially not this far. But if you happen to clip it up, right? And so that smaller guy, he believes that he's the best choice for that homeowner, and he may very well be. The issue therefore becomes is the homeowner and the community and the greater good of like everybody in the marketplace better served by him existing, because he's kind of creating scarcity for others who are trying to grow, because he's gobbling up when he should really just be an employee of those other companies. And he would be a very great employee, but because he wants to make $300,000 a year only helping 45 people a year get a roof, right? And those 45 people, the minute he stops, he's gone. He's never going to answer their phone call again.
Which ultimately is a little bit of like a liability to every customer you have. So if you don't create something that lasts beyond you, or that could exist beyond you after you pass away, which you will, then you are kind of creating a liability for every single one of your customers.
And they'll say, "Oh, my roofs don't leak." You know what I mean? They'll say that.
Yeah, but they don't leak for a while.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole idea, and I think that this is just the invisible hand of capitalism will cast their vote, because I think what we're starting to see is we're starting to see to the point where some companies will be able to seek to charge less rather than to charge more as a method of growth, right? And when that market shift happens, it's gonna be troublesome for those guys, because those guys believe that they should be getting more money for what they're doing because it's a hard job.
So they can't do that shift. They can't go, oh, well, that roof was 18 last year. I'm not going to do 17 this year, even though it's not Angie Roofing. Apparently, they're getting rid of that section of the business, supposedly. I saw a recent announcement that they're getting rid of that, by the way. But Amazon Roofing or whoever is doing 17K roof. Why is that profitable for them, or why would they ever do that? And they're just like, I won't.
Yeah.
And so then they start to like lose market share. Okay, I didn't realize that was what you think was going to happen.
I think that's what's going to happen, is that you're going to see somebody seek to charge less, right? You're just like, there's two kinds of businesses. Businesses seek to charge their customers more, and businesses seek to charge their customers less. And there's ego wrapped up in charging more, and there's dignity wrapped up in charging less. You want to have a virtuous cycle of price where you still feel like you're getting value for your dollar, and your people feel like their time is being valuable and that they're being compensated appropriately. But there is a terminal growth rate that comes, and eventually you want to make sure that you gobble up as much market share as possible while making it profitable, while giving customers the best experience. These are the kind of things that most business owners don't have the time to think about, because they're too busy trying to think, I should try and make my own button, and I got to go run out and sell my own roof, and I'm going to order my own material because it saves me a couple of grand a month on a production manager.
Those guys do my own SEO, make my own website.
Cowboy coder, right? So I mean, it's like those companies are spending the time to actually do the analysis, right? There's real business owners coming into the market. I keep clicking this, and I know it's going to be super loud in the video, but there's real business owners coming into the roofing space. There's real people, like in in COVID, for some reason, a bunch of really smart people started looking around saying like, how's this changing the marketplace? And they went, holy crap, building materials are up and yet home starts aren't slowing down that much. And they went, so how much are these guys making? And they started looking at businesses and they went, oh, HVAC's pretty consolidated, all right. And then they went, concrete, that's a lot of capital expenditure to get into that. And they like stumbled across roofing and they went, that looks pretty good. And they're like, well, let's go talk to who's in the roofing industry. And they were like, these morons are making 45% gross margins and they don't know their ass from an elbow. And now they went, we got to get into this. And you're seeing it. And I'm not saying that that's everybody. I'm just saying that if you look around for a little bit of time, you can't help but run across a few idiots who are doing really, really, really good and that haven't necessarily got the business acumen to be doing really, really good. And so then there's other business people who are like, we could come in here and just gobble this up. I mean, I've run a business where we grew market share at 30% gross profit. All we got to do is just increase the efficiency of the business.
I got to be the other perspective here on this one. Like, think about I do think there's more complexity in this than some of these, like money people saw from the high level. It's not the same as HVAC in certain ways. It's not, with HVAC, you're selling boxes. This is the kind of the way they say that, right? And with roofing, there is, I'm not saying it's like the most complex thing ever, but the install is pretty involved. And the management of those installs, like they can go off, if you don't have the right labor, stuff can go bad. You can lose your ass. So there is some to scale that out, the management of that labor, and to make sure that it's done in a way that doesn't affect your reputation negatively, essentially like that. I think that there is some complexity there that's maybe a little bit more complex than the purely money guys fully recognize. And there's some complexity around, if you're trying to compete, we've talked about this so many times now because of all the panels.
And nobody's watched it all.
Yeah, no one's watched it all, but I will say that there's this element of that local brand, if you can nail it, to kind of create moat.
Contractors love the catch-all because it makes every single one of their roof builds easier and more profitable. Protective netting wraps facade and landscaping to prevent from left-behind nails and damage. Homeowner referrals bring you more jobs, and insurance supplements bring you more profits. But my favorite part, the branding.
All I'm saying is that there's 107,000 roofing companies in the market, and there's 2 people that you can use for FedEx and UPS. There's 5 auto manufacturers. There's 4 or 5 airlines with a couple of subsidiaries.
And there's certainly a lot of complexity to those businesses.
Yes, huge amounts of complexity to those businesses, right? I mean, huge amounts of liability. Crashing planes can make things go really wrong, right?
Yep.
Not delivering packages can cause people to die. I had medication delivered to me in Minneapolis from a doctor in San Antonio, and that medication has to be refrigerated, and that whole thing was able to coordinate it on time, because if I don't get that medicine, my health could go bad. So, I mean, that's complexity. And so when you look at the top 25 count, and this is something we haven't talked about, but I recently revisited because we do our quarterly reviews of our rocks and stuff like that, and our mission statement is we want to solve for the minimum viable number of competitors that need to exist in a given market, in a given industry, to maximize the efficiency for the customer and the profit for the business. And so it's
I think my number on that is higher than a lot of the ones that you said. I would say 5,000.
Sure.
Minimum 5,000 roofing companies in the United States. That would be my guess.
And that's a question.
I believe that local market complexity and stuff like that is, I think there's ideally more than a lot of the guesses underneath your thing. We're 300 or 30 or something like that, and I tend to think it's higher.
For sure. You got a big country, right? Right. You got a big country, spread out population. But
and it's good to have competition.
I'm not saying it's not.
So
good
that
to
is
have
question.
Everybody thinks I'm going a socialist, right?
I want to hear what you really have to think about it. Do you think it's good to have competition? I'm picking just Adam Sand's brain about random topics now.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's good to have competition, right? Yeah. I think that competition improves the market. But I think that eventually a consolidation of labor markets reduces the cost of labor, which nobody loves because that reduces the cost of paying jobs. But then I think that as you create labor market efficiency, then you can invest in technology.
The cost is pretty low right now, though. The actual labor cost seems pretty low on roofing. You've got such you've got the subcontractors a lot of times, and you've got they're not getting paid an insane amount.
I think that it's artificially low because we're allowing this, I shouldn't say allowing. The subcontractor world, there's other problems in play there, right? Like the fact that the bulk.
Because I would think that would go up.
The bulk, I think it will go up after it goes down, right? But I think that you're going to see technology and efficiency, and I think you're going to see unionization, right? Because then whenever the labor market goes down, then you create unions, then unions come up, increase the cost of labor. But
that's what I was thinking about, because there's labor unions in like all the other niches.
Right, and then you get unit economics of the business coming down to allow to pay more for the labor. So I think that there's a cycle that has come to industries like this, where the labor will get a bigger proportion of the share because the business operates at a lower cost.
That actually makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like that would be because ultimately I don't think you can get that much cheaper right now with labor.
No, you could get cheaper just from suppressing labor. Like if you look, I've interviewed some big companies that'll name nameless because I don't want them to get mad at me for saying this. But
we know
go there, I go there and I say like, what are your rates? And they're like, oh, well, we actually pay a little bit less, but they always know there's work and they can always come in here and get a work whenever they want. And we're always booked out and we always pay on time. And then there's smaller companies that, we pay a lot more because we believe the roofers should get more, but they're also giving them a job here and a job here and a job there, and they're paying them late.
Oh, exactly.
Right? Yeah. So it's like, there's this ebb and flow of the market, and then the roofing labor is forced to try and find their way through that and navigate through that. And I believe that it's
a big inconvenience with some of that.
Right. And I also believe that in
a
business, there's also three costs that I think are discretionary in a more efficient marketplace. Yeah. So I don't think that 50 roofing companies paying, this is not necessarily so friendly to you, but I don't think that 50 roofing companies paying Hook Agency, Roofer Marketers, and Ascend Digital $5,000 a month to present their unique market approach, which is that we sell the same shingles installed the same way, using the same tools by the same people in the same amount of time for more or less the same price, but we care and we have integrity and we believe in customer service. Okay, so same messaging, right? And those 30 roofing companies or 50 roofing companies paying $5,000 a month for that, they're also paying $5,000 a month for a production manager to run 3 crews, and they're also paying $5,000 a month for a bookkeeper to keep the math straight. And I think that if you look at the top 25 counties in the U.S. represent 97 million people in the population. The top 15 have over 1 million, right? And then the top 25 represent 97 million total. And the geographic area of that is basically the East Coast, Texas, in like the East and South, and then basically Los Angeles, Nevada, Las Vegas, Denver, Seattle, right? And then the rest of the country is all the rest, right? And so those top 25 counties, 97 million people, divided by 4 people for average size of a household, you're looking at 24.7 million homes. 60% home ownership rate, you're looking at like 17 million houses. 17 million houses getting roofs done every 20 years is a $10 billion per year market cap, right? That's just residential. Just let me finish my point here. Of those companies, if you divide that up by the companies that exist to serve that right now, there's $15,000 a month in income that the customer ultimately has to pay for. It represents 5% with their marketing. It represents 1 or 2%, right, with their, or 1 or 2 to 5% with their production manager, and roughly the same thing with their bookkeeper. And if you were to collapse those 3 costs and do that in 30 markets and consolidate 30 companies, it's a $1.5 billion a year savings.
Yeah. Let's say you took marketing in-house, though, you're just going to have to, like, let's say you took 5, you have 1 employee
but you
with
could
a
have
small company, and you have 5 employees with the big company. Like, there's not that much savings.
Well, if you take 30 companies and consolidate from 30 employees down to 5, that's a huge savings.
Why?
Because 30 employees is less than 5 employees.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, there's still got to be the work getting done at some place.
For sure. It just gets more efficient. You know what I mean? Especially with things like AI, where you can say, make this local placement page for these 38 counties, make these local content pages or something.
I think that, like, there's this element of, like, efficiency when you're talking about the small, like, I think about small market roofing companies, for instance. Like,
but we're talking about the top 25 counties in the country that represent 97 million population. I'm not talking about the crumb in 40 miles out of Wichita.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know. I'm thinking, so for instance, I'm thinking about La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Okay.
You have a roofing company there that, like, ultimately, if some other entity tried to come in they wouldn't understand. And you might call that a crumb. I guess maybe that's the real differentiation could be, because like ultimately I don't think of it as a crumb of business. It's a $10 million roofing company, but
that guy's not a crumb. That guy owns his market.
Yeah.
Right. I've got I've worked with clients like that. Tiny little town, 8,000 people doing 10 million a year. That market's a crumb to that other company because it would be expensive. It would be more expensive to compete with that guy
than to acquire.
So then they would probably either acquire him, or just leave him. And go after the $10 billion that exists in those 25 counties. Because like what we're thinking is 10 million is huge, but when you multiply this by 107,000 companies, and sure, the bottom 90% are doing $1 million, right, or less, and then the top 100 are doing between 20 and like whatever the top number is now, 500 or something, right? So like your top 100 is 20 and under, and I think that 1 in 3 reports, so you're probably looking at the top 300 fit that dispersion of like huge down to the minimum 20 million. I think basically if you report 20 million, you break into the NRCA top 100. If you look at number one.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right?
It's like,
but I know companies that are above that don't report.
Right? Like as far as like, I'm not saying that the top 100, but like residential, I think it's like the 5th one down or something that does any residential. And then it's like, so the real top 100 of residential roofing companies is like probably like 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, man.
Right. And so we already see this. And then many of those companies are actually using the labor from the other companies. So we're already seeing that like the bottom 1% are really just registered roofing companies working for the top 1%, right? Because they're just the labor component, but they also do 5 roofs on their own. I think it's like the line is like 10, I think that is $10,000 a year. So like to be registered as a roofing company, you have to like do $10,000 in your roofing work. So it doesn't even matter. So the bottom 1% are not selling their own roof work, right? They're just selling a roof here and there, right? As general contractors or something like that. So maybe it's like 60,000 roofing companies currently exist, and maybe that could collapse down to 5,000, of which there'd be 25 huge ones and 59, 75, crumbs, right?
Do you ever, let's just talk about Adam Sand's brain for a second. How often do you find yourself having to take your level of sophistication that you feel as electricity in your brain and have to bring it down and be honest to the person that you're talking to? How often are you doing that?
I feel like I'm able to kind of like, you don't know the topic unless you can explain to a Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I can't simplify it, right? So I'm constantly living in two worlds. On one hand, I got to be able to break this down in such a way that like you can explain it in simple terms that everybody can understand it, because then you're providing value. But at the same time, I have to start at the high level thinking, and so I try and get
myself. You do a lot of your thinking out loud, right?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. So I have to talk about it with other people, and I try and put myself in rooms with people who are way smarter than me, so that like I'm like the chimpanzee in the room, right? And then I try and bring that back to the market so that I can bring value. So I kind of have to think out loud at these, like, whatever, when people say Adam's smart like that, I hate that, because I know so many people who are way smarter than me, and they're like,
name a few.
Michael Moran, who works for Dimitri, right? He's like, he knows so much shit that I don't know, right? Brennan, one of my clients. Brian, another one of my clients. Brian Tice, he owns Roofing USA. He's like Stanford graduate.
Yeah, and
Dante, he's
Rhino
Roofers. He's so like these guys are way smarter than me,
yeah.
right? Even Dustin Bigler, he always points at me and says, "Oh, smartest guy," and I'm like, "Well, no, but you know how to simplify, right?" And what he knows about mergers and acquisitions, and then there's not just smarts, but there's experience, right? And then there's then there's the whole like state of California. You know what I mean? Like,
what do you mean?
Well, like all Silicon Valley people who know, like, and then there's technical skill sets.
But in roofing, like, and ultimately, like, and there's an element of like being able to synthesize all this information and apply it based on the context to somebody's situation, which is incredibly valuable, right? Like,
I think that's really what it is, because at a certain level, advice,
general advice,
doesn't matter. It's like a boat. It's like a boat.
What's Hormozy's YouTube channel has an insane amount of general advice, but like unless you had somebody in the room with you saying like, do this.
Yeah, because it's like when you're at a certain point in business, advice is like a boat, right? It's just like advice is like navigating a boat by the stars, right? Where it's like you got a general idea as to where you're going, and any particular movements of the rudder don't really move you off course too much. But like when we were talking about some of the stuff in your business is operating at a fairly high level, and at some point, if you make drastic change, right, or take advice, it's like a race car. You know what I mean? If you've got traction in your business and you make a decision to go left, it's like, and you go like that way, and next thing you know, you're crashing into a wall, right? So all of a sudden, it pays to have context and experience to add resolution to the advice.
And confidence, right? Like we were talking about the confidence going up. Like we may have already had a decision in place, but having confidence in that decision really helps the how quick, the commitment, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it's good to check with smart people. I think I always enjoy these conversations. I want to wrap up this conversation.
48 minutes.
Yeah, 48 minutes. And actually, you know what? I'm just going to make this no podcast. So I hope that's okay.
A what podcast?
A podcast, our Hook podcast.
For sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for watching or listening. Can you give them a call to action for if they want to check you out?
Yeah, go to roofingbusinessbar.com or find me on Facebook.
Awesome. And thank you for watching. See you guys later.